It's always Fitbit time. All right. Make sure you take a look at that distance. Get it? Got it? Time to walk.
Okay. Well, I am missing my hip band today. However, I've decided to take this to a 3.0. Now that's going to be interesting. Either way, we are here, we're ready to work, and I do have my 3-pound kettlebells. So I am excited about that. That being said, my name is Ty, also known as Tyra, and I'll be walking a mile every single day. So I hope you're here to join me, or at the very least, just watch me. All right. Now, I talk to Gemini as I walk, so this should be a pretty interesting conversation. Without further ado, let's bring in our girl. Hi Gemini, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. It's always nice to connect with someone new. How can I help you today?
Well, I wanted to have a conversation with you. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'm always up for a good chat. What would you like to talk about?
Okay. Let's talk about layoffs.
Layoffs are a really tough situation for everyone involved. It sounds like that might be something on your mind right now. Is there anything specific you'd like to talk about, like how companies decide who to let go or how to deal with the stress of it all?
Well, how do companies decide who to let go?
That's a great question, and it's not always straightforward. Sometimes companies have specific criteria, like whether someone's been there a long time or how much they get paid. Other times it's about what teams need the most people, or even who's the easiest to replace. Do you want to hear about how layoffs are affecting different industries right now?
Yes.
Okay, so the tech industry's been hit pretty hard with layoffs recently. Big names and smaller companies alike. It's a similar story in finance, banks, and investment firms are cutting back. Even some of the big social media companies have had to let people go. Would you like to hear about some of the other industries that are doing okay?
Which social media companies?
Some of the big ones that have made headlines recently include Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Even companies like Snap, the parent company of Snapchat, have had to make some cuts. Do you want to hear about some of the smaller social media companies that have been affected?
Yes.
Okay, some of the smaller social media platforms have been hit too. Companies like BuzzFeed and Vice have had to lay people off. Even some of the more up-and-coming platforms are feeling the pinch. Do you want to hear about how the job market's been for people laid off from social media?
Of course.
It's been really tough for people laid off from social media companies. With so many cuts across the board, there's a lot more competition for open jobs. Plus, some of the skills needed in social media are pretty specialized, which can make it harder to switch to a totally different industry. Do you want to hear about some of the resources that might help someone who's been laid off from a social media company?
Yes.
Okay, there are a few things to look into. First, check out career centers at colleges and universities. They often have job boards and career counselors who can help. Also, there are tons of online resources and communities specifically for people transitioning their careers. Would you like me to find some of those online resources?
Well, no, not right now.
Okay, no worries. We can definitely circle back to that later. So do you want to brainstorm some ways to make yourself extra appealing to hiring managers in this tough market? Or maybe talk about how to handle the emotional side of being laid off?
Well, how do you handle the emotional side?
Dealing with the emotional side of layoffs is really tough. It's totally normal to feel shocked, angry, or even a little lost. Some people find it helpful to talk to friends and family, while others prefer journaling or spending time in nature. If you're finding it hard to cope on your own, there are mental health professionals who specialize in career transitions. They can help you work through those emotions and come up with strategies for moving forward.
So, what are some of the common reasons companies conduct layoffs?
There are a few big reasons why companies decide to lay people off. Sometimes it's about money. Maybe the company isn't making as much as they used to, or they need to spend less to stay afloat. Other times, it's about changing the direction of the company, and they realize they don't need certain jobs anymore. Do you want to hear about how companies usually decide who gets laid off?
Yes.
It's not always fair, but companies often look at how much people are paid when deciding who to let go. They might also consider how long someone's been with the company, or whether their job is absolutely critical to keeping things running smoothly. Do you want to hear about how some companies try to make layoff decisions fairer?
Yes.
Some companies use a system called last in, first out. That means the newest hires are the first to go. Others try to keep a mix of experience levels, so they might look at how long people have been there. And some companies even offer voluntary buyout packages, where employees can choose to leave with some severance pay. Do you want to hear about how to prepare for a possible layoff, even if you don't think your job is in danger?
Absolutely.
Okay, there are a few things you can do. First, take a close look at your skills and experience. Think about ways you can update your resume or portfolio to highlight your strengths. Also, start networking with people in your industry, even if you're not actively looking for a job. Finally, take care of yourself. Make time for things you enjoy, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you're feeling stressed out.
Okay. So,
Right, sounds good.
so how do layoffs typically affect a company's stock price?
Usually, a company's stock price takes a small hit right after announcing layoffs. Investors worry that the company's in trouble if they're having to let people go, but it's not always a bad sign. Sometimes, a company's stock price can actually go up after layoffs. This happens when investors think the layoffs will save the company money and make it more profitable in the long run.
So, is it possible for companies to write off severance pay?
Yes, companies can usually write off severance pay as a business expense. They'll include it as part of their spending on things like salaries and benefits.
Oh, wow. Do you have any examples?
It's one of those weird rules of business. Do you want to hear? Sure thing. Sometimes companies use layoffs to make a big splash, like they're turning things around. They might say they need to cut costs to stay competitive, even if that's not totally true. Or they can position layoffs as part of a big strategy change, like moving into a new market or focusing on different products.
Wow. Okay.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe something a little less heavy?
Well, no. What is the difference between like a layoff and a furlough?
Okay, so a layoff means your job is totally gone. The company doesn't need your position anymore, and they won't be bringing you back. A furlough is more like a temporary pause on your job. You're still employed, but you're not working or getting paid for a set amount of time. The idea is that things will eventually get better, and you'll go back to work with the same job.
So, how do layoffs influence like customer spending?
Layoffs can definitely hit customer spending. When people lose their jobs, they have less money to spend, and that can slow down the whole economy. People might cut back on things like eating out, shopping, or even getting their car fixed. This can hurt businesses in all sorts of industries.
Okay. So,
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe something a little less heavy?
sure, we can talk about something a little less heavy. What do you have in mind?
How about we talk about something fun? We could try coming up with a crazy idea for a new reality show. Or maybe I could tell you a joke. What sounds good?
No, let's go back to the layoffs. Let's talk about layoffs.
Okay, we can talk about layoffs. Is there anything specific you'd like to focus on?
So how do severance packages usually work?
Severance packages are basically a deal between you and the company when you get laid off. Usually you get a set amount of money, sometimes based on how long you work there. You might also get benefits like health insurance for a certain period of time. It's sort of like a thank you and a cushion to help while you look for a new job.
So what industries are currently experiencing heavy layoffs?
Right now, it's still the tech industry that's getting hit the hardest. Companies like Meta, Amazon, and even smaller tech firms have been making big cuts. But it's not just tech finance and banking have also seen some layoffs, and even the retail industry is starting to feel the pinch in some areas.
Okay. Is that similar to the Big Lots store?
Big Lots is a bit of a different story. They're focused on cutting costs and getting rid of some of their smaller stores. It's more about changing their business strategy than a reaction to something going wrong in the economy.
Okay, because I received a notice that Big Lots was closing all of their stores. Is this not true?
It's not quite right. Big Lots is closing a bunch of stores, but not all of them. They're going through some financial problems, so they're having to make some tough decisions about which locations to keep open.
Okay. Is there any word on which locations will remain open?
Fortunately, it doesn't look like there's any information yet about which specific Big Lots locations will stay open. They're still working through the process of figuring that out. You might want to keep an eye on their website or social media for updates.
Okay, so what laws usually regulate layoff regulations?
That's a good question. The laws around layoffs can get a little complicated since there's some variation depending on where you live. There are federal laws that apply across the whole country, and then there are specific state laws that might add extra rules or protections. Do you want to tell me where you live?
Michigan?
And I can give you more specific info. Okay, since you're in Michigan, the main law you need to know about is called the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, or WARN for short. It basically says that companies have to give you at least 60 days notice before a big layoff or closing down a whole location. There might be some other state-specific rules in Michigan, so it might be worth checking out the Michigan Department of Labor website for more details.
Really? Do you have any other details on this?
Now, here's the thing about WARN. It doesn't apply to every single layoff. There are some exceptions. For example, if the layoffs are because of something sudden and unexpected, like a big drop in sales, the company might not have to give that 60-day notice. You might want to check out the official WARN website for more details on those exceptions and what to do if you think your rights under the law might have been violated.
Okay. So what type of benefits or support do industry usually give their laid off employees?
It depends a lot on the company and what kind of benefits you had to begin with. Some common things are severance pay, which is basically a set amount of money based on how long you worked there. You might also get continued health insurance for a little while, or help finding a new job.
Oh, okay. It's interesting.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe something a little less heavy?
So what type of strategies can companies use to avoid layoffs during tough times?
Okay, there are a few strategies companies can use to try and avoid layoffs. Some will reduce pay across the board, sometimes temporarily. Others might cut back on spending in other areas, like travel or office expenses. They might also freeze hiring or put new projects on hold. Would you like to hear about how some companies get creative to avoid layoffs?
Yes.
Some companies get really creative. They might ask employees to take unpaid time off or work part-time for a while. Others will switch people to different projects or even different departments to keep them on the payroll. It's definitely not ideal, but it beats getting laid off. Would you like to hear about how these kinds of changes can affect employee morale?
Yes.
Right, so these kinds of changes can definitely hit morale. People might feel worried about their jobs. Even if they haven't been laid off yet, they could get stressed about the extra work or the uncertainty about the future. And some folks might even feel resentful if they think the company isn't being totally fair about who's getting the extra work.
Okay. So what can employees do about that?
Okay, so if you're worried about your job, it's definitely a good time to start thinking about your skills and experience. Maybe there's some training you could do to get ahead, or some networking events you could go to. It's also totally okay to talk to your boss if you're feeling stressed or worried. They might have some insight into what's going on.
Definitely not feeling stressed. Okay.
That's good to hear. It sounds like you're handling this situation pretty well.
Absolutely. I love information. Plus, I didn't know half of this info, so it's very helpful.
Glad I could help. It's never fun worrying about layoffs, but the more you know, the better prepared you'll be, just in case.
So, what are the ripple effects of layoffs within supply chain industries?
Okay, so layoffs in the supply chain can have a few ripple effects. First, there's the obvious hit to the people who lose their jobs, but it also puts a strain on the whole system. You end up with fewer people moving things around, which can lead to delays and shortages. Plus, companies might start cutting corners to save money, and that could lead to mistakes and even more problems down the line.
What type of corners?
Well, they might skip some of the usual quality checks on products, or maybe they don't train new employees as much. You could even see companies taking shortcuts on things like safety and maintenance. Basically, they're looking for any way to save money without it being super obvious.
Okay.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Maybe something a little less heavy?
Sure, let's talk about something.
Alright, how about we try coming up with a crazy idea for a new reality show? We could call it Swap Your Life, where two people completely different lives trade places for a week. Or maybe you'd like to hear about something going on in the news.
Sure, what's going on in the news?
There's a lot going on right now. Here's a quick recap. The big news is the LA wildfires. They're still burning, and it's been really destructive. Also, there's been a breakthrough in the Middle East. The US helped broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Finally, the economy seems to be doing pretty well, but there's still some concern about inflation. Would you like to hear more about any of those stories?
Yes, the inflation.
Inflation's still a tricky one. Prices are still higher than we'd like, especially for things like groceries and gas. The good news is that it's not getting worse, but it's also not really getting much better either. Do you want to hear about what the experts are saying about how long it might take for inflation to calm down?
Yes.
Well, economists say it's going to take a while for inflation to cool down completely. We're talking maybe a couple more years. The good news is that prices shouldn't keep going up at the same crazy rate we saw a couple years ago, but it'll still be a while before things feel totally back to normal.
Okay.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yes. What else is in the news?
Sure, so there's this new AI tool that can write college-level essays. It's kind of a game changer for students. Also, a bunch of scientists just created a robot that can fold laundry. And on a weirder note, there's a new documentary about Bigfoot that's got everyone talking. Want to hear more about any of those?
Yes, the AI.
So this new AI tool is called ChatGPT, and it's pretty amazing. You can ask it to write an essay on any topic, and it'll spit out something that's almost impossible to tell apart from what a human wrote. It's got teachers and professors worried because it could make it really hard to know if students are actually doing their own work.
Wow. So how do you get that?
So to get back to the previous screen, you can use the back button on your device.
No. So how do you get ChatGPT?
Okay, getting ChatGPT is pretty easy. You can go to the OpenAI website and sign up for an account. They have a free version, but if you want access to the more advanced features, you'll have to pay a monthly subscription.
Okay, how much is the subscription?
Subscription fee for ChatGPT changes from time to time, but it's usually pretty reasonable. Right now, it's $20 a month.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to know about ChatGPT?
Well, are you able to write an essay?
I'm able to write essays on a variety of topics, but I can't say whether or not they'd be considered college level. Would you like me to try writing a sample essay for you?
No, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else I can help you with?
Well, you can help me celebrate my 1 mile walk.
Got it? Complete it.
Gemini, now you know you have to come through with the outro.
Now YouTube, you wouldn't be vibing to this unless you already hit that like and subscribe button, right? Well, you know the drill. But seriously, come back tomorrow for another awesome video.